Well, ladies and gentlemen, here we are with the first ever Rowdy Hour podcast with our special guest, Fendler.
Come on.
I was the first ever guest on his podcast, Fen Talks, so I felt like it was only right I returned the favor to my mans. Man,
Dude,
how
you
you doing?
help me get Fentalks off the ground. As soon as I got word that there was going to be a rowdy hour, I said, "Brother, sign me up. I'm in. I'm all in, dude. Thanks for having me, bro."
I'm glad to have you, man. Congrats on Partner Plus. Just hit it yesterday. That's
Thank you,
huge.
brother. Yep, that was yeah, man. It was a big fight for us for sure, and it makes all the difference, man. Universe works in a strange way, so it's pretty cool. First month on that program will be also my first as a dad, which is pretty nuts. New father. You still got 4 weeks yet to go, but a lot of good stuff happening, man. But yeah, that was an exciting moment for the congregation for sure.
Well, man, for people that are watching this and maybe don't know you, as you know, I'm all about making this podcast. A lot of people discover new creators who maybe they don't know in their communities. What this podcast is all about. I didn't want it to be a singular, thing where maybe only people from Madden or this community. I felt like it would be key to introduce people to new creators, give them a chance to explore, because I think that's big. I feel like a lot of times we get kind of comfortable in our own little community and you don't ever
Totally.
branch out. And I think it's important to be able to offer people the opportunity to meet new creators like yourself and others from different communities. So let the people know who
Oh,
you are and what you're about.
yeah, dude. Oh man, I'm glad to be here. Name's Fendler. As of late, certainly a variety streamer. We got the channel off the ground right around those COVID years. Started the thing in Madden. Got a little bit lucky, got a little bit good. Had a pretty challenging time in my life just before I picked up the stream. Hurt my back, had a pretty tough mental health episode that I had to seek some care for. Found myself after the injury. I couldn't do my training job anymore. So it kind of back to the drawing board in a lot of ways. I had some extra time. I had moved into sales at the gym that I was working at. Everything shuts down for COVID. So now there's some extra time to be filled. And, was in a CFM with the guys at the time, connected franchise for those of y'all folks who don't play Madden. Just, playing online with a bunch of other users. Yeah, I'll pick an NFL team. And I was playing on the PS4 at the time. And somebody in the group chat was like, "Man, why don't you could just share from your PS4. Why don't you stream the game? We want to watch it, see what's going on there." And, four people turns to six, turns to 10, turns to 15. And, just keep showing up, keep doing, putting forth the high effort. And certainly, not, you can't understate, I don't think, streaming during the COVID era was, certainly a little bit different. Everyone's home looking for stuff to do. So we were able to strike while that iron is hot and got partnered a little bit later that year. And we've just been trying to make it work ever since, man. Like I said, home base certainly in Madden, but with how games are good and bad and in between, it was important to me to be able to expand a little bit and do other things on the channel as well. And I think we've been lucky enough to accomplish that. And here we are now.
And speaking about Madden and football, for those who don't know, Fendler actually was a center in college football, a girthy center at that, ladies and gentlemen, 6'2". I mean, let me
Come
know.
on, man.
Tell me, so what was it like, playing center in high school and obviously getting recruited? What is that process like, as someone who, loves the game and
Oh,
ultimately
yeah.
wants to play at the highest level?
For sure, man. Oh, dude, it was I remember it fondly because I won't tell you a story here. It was a stroke of the ego. You know what I mean? Because you're a senior in class, and the phone in the room will buzz, and some reluctant teacher will they pick up the phone, they look at me, they roll their eyes a little bit, hang the phone up, and they're like, "Hey, Fendler, a coach is here to see you." So they would go on recruiting visits. These coaches from different colleges they'd go, pretty much visit all the high schools in the area, link up with the head coach of the team and be like, "Hey, man, do you have guys that want to play at the next level? Do you have guys that you think could play at the next level?" And, thankfully I was in that conversation. We got, an all-state nod. my senior year, and the team was really good too. So it was cool, getting that call during the day, and you knew some new coach was there to meet you, and and tell you how great you were at football, and try to schedule a visit out. I was a 6'2", 285 interior lineman from suburbia. So we were truly a dime a dozen players like me. You could find a whole bunch of them. So the best Division 1 opportunity that I got was at UAlbany, where I wound up going. They gave me an athletic grant, which is kind of like a scholarship in disguise, but I was not one of these full scholarship guys. I was not a 1A recruit, right? Even for being as big as I was, 6'2", 285, I was still one of the smaller offensive linemen by the time I got to Albany. So the process is cool, man. Strokes your ego, and you could have had your pick of Division 3 schools, but I wanted to roll the dice and see how I could do as a Division 1 player, and thankfully Albany was interested enough. Got a couple bucks, and I shipped my big daddy-o self up to upstate New York, man. It was a good experience.
Now, with that, obviously being a center in college football, is there anything that you would change about your time as a center? Whether in high school or college ball, is there one thing that you look back on and go, "I could have done better," or something that maybe you regret, maybe not doing as much as you should have possibly done?
That is a great question, bro. That's a great question. And the specific answer is I would have worked harder. I definitely would have worked harder, because while you're in it, like some of the smaller details, like going to practice, or you have a walkthrough, or you have a team meeting, it feels very routine, right? Like you're doing so much of it, and it's weekly. And at the time, it's very easy to take for granted, like, yeah, I got practice, like I'm just going to try to get through it because I got like something to do tonight. So I just kind of want to get my stuff done, and be competitive. And but I really don't feel like I feel like I could have done better in hindsight, and I feel like that's the goal, right? Like you want to live your life in a way that if you could redo things, you would have learned something, and you would do a little bit better or a little bit more. So I feel like in the off season, I could have stood to work a little bit harder and be a little more focused. I think it would have been helpful to me on the field once I finally got to college, because then everybody's good at that point, right? All the freshmen, the seniors are great, and they've been in the lifting program for years. They're the strongest dudes you've ever laid hands on. But all the freshmen you're coming in with are also, they were all state, all conference. They had all the accolades, and they were captains too. And so you go from a big fish in a medium pond to you're back to square one. Like if you're as good as everyone else, you're in a pretty good spot. And in some cases, you might need to fight a little bit harder. So I think I would have worked a little bit more. And then, just like I said, taking practice for granted, I would have slowed down a little bit and really just enjoyed even the practice aspect of it, because there comes a time that you take your shoulder pads and your helmet off for the very last time, and in a lot of instances you don't see that coming. You're not going to realize when your last time strapping pads on and putting that helmet is going to be. And with that in mind, just with the end ever around the corner, I would have enjoyed what I was doing a little more so at the time. I think that's an anecdote for just like life in general too. Like, you can't always get caught looking too far forward. You got to enjoy the scenery a little bit as you're going through it. So those are some of the things I feel like I would have changed up.
Now, obviously, as your time as a center in college football came to an end,
Mm,
after college and you get out, you began a new chapter in your life as a personal trainer.
right.
um so what got you into that? What led your interest into that? Was it your time in college football, or was it something that you had interest in before high school or college, or was it something that you just woke up one day and you kind of were just like, I think I could give it a shot at this, maybe this could turn into something?
Yeah, bro. The athletics definitely had a lot to do with it for sure. Once I stopped playing football, I still had all these great habits from the gym, and I had access to all the athletic building and their weight room and stuff like that. So I had a lot of access to a lot of great equipment and spaces to be able to work out in. So, even though football stopped, I kept lifting, started to learn a little bit about nutrition, which at the time really was just like chicken and rice. That was my idea of nutrition, and it was, effective enough. But um, once I didn't have a reason to be 285 to 300 pounds anymore, I wanted to look a little bit differently. I wanted to change my body. So I spent, the rest of my college years trying to be as fit and as strong as I possibly could. Got out of college and pretty much just took the first like real quote job that I was offered, which was a car salesman, selling Chevrolets for about a year. And right at about a year in, I was like, man, I don't feel like I'm contributing anything to the world around me. To the contrary, I feel like the objective of my job is to take as much from people as I possibly can and to give them as little as possible. And that's not making me feel good anymore. Like, I don't feel like I'm doing anything good for anybody, myself included. The money was great. I had more money than I knew what to do with, at 20 years old. I wouldn't make that much money again until a few years into my training career, but it was worth it. And kind of just all at once, man, I had a particularly bad interaction with management at the car dealership, and they were treating me a way that I didn't appreciate. And I'm like, man, I could be giving back something right now. I'm going to the gym in my off time right now anyway. I feel strongly about it. I've been able to change my body. Like, if I can do this for other people, then I would like to. And bought the National Academy of Sports Medicine textbook at my desk at the car dealership. Got it expedited shipping, and the next morning I came in early when it was just the owner there, told him I quit, and that was that. I studied for the test, took me about a month, passed my certified personal trainer exam, and I was lucky enough to get a job at one of the big fancy expensive gym in suburban North Jersey. And I enjoyed a good handful of years of a really successful training career, but kind of found it was something I was passionate about, and a way that I felt like I could give back to the world in a positive way rather than just taking as a car salesman. And I had a great run, man. I had a great run. I loved what I do. I still do love talking about it for sure, but it was an adventure, man.
So obviously, after your time as a personal trainer, then came the next step, which
Mhm.
was content creation. And I know
Yeah.
you talked about you had some rough years after the personal trainer thing with your injury. Um,
Yeah.
do you feel like what's one thing that you learned in personal training that you feel like carried over to content creation?
That's another great question. So during personal training, whether you're with a talkative client who is going back and forth with you a lot, or maybe a quieter client, whether shy or less comfortable in the gym or whatever the case may be, and there's a lot of in between too. It's not just on either end of the spectrum, but you had to fill dead air time a lot as a personal trainer too, talking about whatever, like whether it was the movement that they were doing right now, or trying to take a temperature as to whether you felt like they wanted to talk about their day or about work or about what they have going on at home. Some clients wound up using the time just as much for physical training as they did to get some stuff off their chest. And I was always happy to talk to people like that. So it was really a direct translation from being, and it well, Rowdy. Sometimes you have to be the one. You have to be able to talk to either somebody or nobody or a lot of people or anywhere in between. And you know kind of having that forced in personal training, if someone doesn't really want to talk much, you're not just going to sit there in silence and look at them. You got to have something to say at all times. So I got a lot of practice with filling dead air time, talking kind of mostly to myself sometimes, hoping that somebody is listening, but at the end of the day, really just yakking. So I felt like that was beneficial. And also, I mean, not for nothing, the I have never had a job that wasn't commission based in pay. It's, car sales. There was no hourly. You just got paid if you sold cars. Even personal training, there was, the hourly was only if you weren't selling any sessions, and you were getting paid based off of how many sessions you were working, how many sessions you were selling. So the idea of, in a really direct way, earning your keep and earning your money, because it's not like you could just show up and punt for the day. You're not going to get paid if you do that. You have to show up, like, the motto at this place that I worked was you're always on stage, right? Like somebody is always watching you. If you're in the gym's uniform, even if you're not interacting with somebody, if you're walking around with your shirt untucked and you're on your phone and you're like eating on the floor and just looking like trash, like people are going to see that. So this idea that people are watching, you got to be engaging and vocal and fill dead air time, and the fact that you're really only getting paid for when you show up and when you do a good job. I feel like a lot of that helped to prepare me for what content creation, what streaming would feel like.
Yeah, dead air time is not easy at all.
Uh,
And that brings me to my next question, because obviously you did have to deal with that early on in your
sure.
streaming, but you had your number one supporter in your amazing wife, Emily.
Oh
Uh,
man.
so talk to me about this, because obviously I've never experienced this. In I've been single the whole time I've been streaming. What is that dynamic like, being in a relationship like that? What is it like streaming? Obviously, because it takes so much time and it takes so
Yeah,
much dedication.
for
Um,
sure.
Obviously, it's not easy on a significant other. What is that dynamic like? And what was her initial thoughts when you said, hey, I'm gonna give this a try?
You know what? To her credit, and it could have been streaming. It could have been anything. I'm very lucky to be loved by my wife the way that I am, and I love her the very same way. So it was met with nothing but encouragement and understanding. And she saw that we could be on to something as well. Like I won't lie to you. I think if we had booted up and for a few months, or if we're getting into a lot of time spent on the thing and I still am stuck at 0 viewers, I would imagine maybe the tone would have been different. But because we were growing, sometimes slowly, sometimes not at all, sometimes kind of just holding steady. She felt good about, at that time, it's just chasing a dream, you know what I mean? And it's one day at a time type of thing. She loved being a part of the community as well. So, I mean, the significant other and whether or not they are riding with you is going to have a lot to do with whether or not streaming and being in a relationship is going to work. Because if you're in a situation where your significant other is fighting you on it, or they don't really see the vision, they feel like it's a waste of time, um thankfully I didn't have to deal with that, but I would imagine that that would represent a significant challenge to be able to do this successfully. Because like you said, Rowdy, like it takes a bunch of time, it takes a bunch of effort, it takes a bunch of attention. And even when you're offline, like, have you tweeted yet today? Like, did you pull any clips? Like, did you post on TikTok? You got a YouTube cooking? Like, what else are you doing? So it's not just the live time, it's all this other time as well. So her supporting me chasing a dream, and not just theoretically supporting, like, yeah, go babe, like, making me meals for subathon, or understanding that if I'm doing a 12-hour, I'm not gonna be available. Her support has been crucial, and I think that a significant other that is riding with you in that way, you just cannot overstate how valuable someone like that is to have in your corner. And by the same token, I think it would, in theory, represent a really big challenge if, for example, you were dating someone who just didn't really get it. But that's one of the ways one of the numerous ways that I got really lucky with my wife, is that she's gonna support me in, no, in pretty much anything that I do. So that was a blessing, and she was really helpful in getting this thing going, obviously.
Now with that, you guys are expecting a child soon. I believe in December,
Sure.
if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, man. So we actually just today scheduled the appointment. So I guess baby Fend is sitting upright, which is not ideal for it's not an ideal situation for her to be in. So we scheduled right now her date to come Earthside. We got a C-section scheduled for right now. If we could naturally deliver, then we would like to do that. But right now, the C-section is scheduled for a month from today. the 30th of November. So we're like, I mean, truly final countdown here, bro. 4 weeks and a couple days. We're ready. I know Emily's ready. I'm sure a lot of any of the ladies that watch our podcast back and have had children of their own can relate. But this third trimester, like, a lot happens quickly. The baby grows a lot. So we're final countdown, and I think Emily's ready to move on from pregnant to being a mom, I think.
You're gonna be a girl dad, correct?
I'm gonna be a girl dad. That's right, man. Cameron Elizabeth Fendler is how we're leaning. Unless she gets here and it's very obvious that that's not her name. I don't think that's gonna happen. But yeah, man, Cameron is gonna be here very shortly, and everything's like ready for it too. We got her crib built, and she's got like dishes and clothes in the house. We're lucky to have a very supportive family close to us. That it's kind of all hands on deck. Really the village comes together for an event like this. But the house is ready for her, man. It's just now a matter of waiting for her to get Earthside, really.
Now, obviously, with you being a full-time content creator, what do you think the biggest change is going to be for you being a new father? And what do you think is going to be the hardest thing for you to kind of adjust to? Obviously having a kid that, newborn baby, kids need a lot, there's a lot that needs to be done when you're having a new kid. What do you think the biggest adjustment is going to be for not only you, but, also Emily, and your guys' bringing a kid into this world?
It's so Emily, we have the advantage of Emily will have her maternity leave, right? So she'll have a few weeks where she's off of work, a good few weeks where she's off of work, that time to bond with the baby and be at home and kind of find your way with this huge change that happens in the household. So that will help. And it's gonna shake up every bit of routine that we thought we had, right? So, you know, if I'm liking, stream from 11 to 5 and then dinner and then lift after that, I feel like I have to be prepared to be a little more flexible. Whether it's Emily that needs me or whether it's the baby that needs me, I might not be able to settle in, and plans might need to be tentative. And, so I'm planning to be ready to be a little more dynamic, a little more flexible. Um, you know, Potentially some two a day type of things. Like if it's tougher for me to get a stream for 6 hours straight, but I could do 3 hours and then tend to the baby for a few hours, and then Emily gets some rest and she's ready to go again. So splitting it up like that, it's tough, man. Because I'm not a father yet. It's going to be my first time, so I've done a lot of work, just not just thinking about it, but research too of like, what's this really going to be like, talking to other dads or reading up like what these first couple days and weeks are like around the house. And I feel like I just got to the point where it's like you got to kind of just understand that you can be as ready as you possibly can, and that's the best that you can be, and that's the most that you can do. And at the end of the day, it's just going to be, you're going to have to figure it out. So I'm ready to have to figure it out, man. I'm excited. Being a father has been one of the things that I've most wanted for, myself as a man. Really, even ever since my 20s, I feel like I've been preparing for this moment, whether it be, coaching youth football or whatever the case may be. I feel like I've put a lot of mental energy and mental work into preparing for, what is now just a month away. So I'm sure a lot is going to have to change with the stream. My flexibility, being a little more dynamic, maybe splitting things up, or a couple things that I think of right off the top of my head, of a couple adjustments we might just need to make.
Now, one interesting thing about you is, everyone's got things they call their chat, right? I've got
Yeah.
my big Rowdy energy thing. You
Yep, yep,
obviously have
PRE.
you've obviously got the congregation.
That's right.
What is the origin of the congregation? Like, did you find it? Was it something you discovered early in life, or was it something that you came up with during streaming?
Dude, honestly, this might be an anticlimactic answer. The the congregation is the phrase, the word, and like kind of the inflection, congregation, that I use is from a random Dave Chappelle skit. I think it was season 1, and I'm sure a Dave Chappelle nerd in the chat might remember specific. It might have been Clayton Bigsby. I'm not certain. The content of the skit is not important at all. It was just the way Dave said the congregation made me laugh then, and as the stream developed and the stuff, like as you know, the stuff kind of like it happens on its own. So I'm sure I said it one day and it just wound up sticking. The celebration for subscriptions was the same thing. The hold up that became an emote now, that originated in Popular Strangers stream. Big shout out to Pop. He's another Madden creator, big YouTuber, and I spent a lot of time with his content, whether on YouTube, and then I was like, oh, he does this live on Twitch. Like, let me see what Twitch is about. And I always give Pop credit for, being one of the guys, Pop, ScoMo, really even Xerxes, a lot of Madden creators, guys that got me on Twitch in the first place. When he would get subs, he would do the hype in the chat. And I remember when I got my first couple subscriptions, I started doing the exact same thing. My first syllable was and I was like, dude, you can't bite Pop this ferociously. Like, you're just about to do the exact same thing that he does. So hold up a gosh dang minute chat, and then we were rolling from there. But Congregation, I'm gonna have to pull the clip now because that's a fair question. Congregation was specifically off a Dave Chappelle skit, and hold up. I'm giving the origination credits to my man Popular Stranger on that one. Everything's got a story, bro, and I feel like most of these happen just on accident, really.
Yeah, no, a lot of my stuff just kind of happens. I think that's almost everyone. Like the little stuff that
Yeah,
you
no
see from
question.
streamers, it's either it comes from a viewer that like one time came in, and sometimes it's even stuff from like a viewer that like a viewer get banned, never hear from them again. But you'll take that
Right.
one thing and be like, oh, thank you, and
Right,
see ya.
right. The
You're on your
ultimate copy pastas, or they wind up with an unbanned request that's hilarious and it just becomes part of lore. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
So speaking about Pop, ScoMo, Xerxes, what's the number one tip that another creator gave you, whether it was early on or, it could have just been recently, honestly, in a conversation?
That is a great question. That's a great question. An easy one, like a low hanging fruit one, is more just like practically speaking. Pop gave me a good tip in recording my videos and recording my streams locally. And this is not what you're asking, but I'm going to answer like the question in a more substantive way in a second. He taught me to make it easier to clip stuff, to end your video recording when right after the clip happens, so you just go back to your VODs and the last thing that happened in the VOD is the clip that you want to harvest, so you don't need to go back into a full video file and like go through it and try to clip it out. I know that that's not really what you were asking. I've learned a lot from a lot of good people. Off the top of my head, like Mills is one of the guys that I take a lot of cues from. Somebody who I have seen, be successful in sports streaming and sports variety streaming, and has expanded from there. Guys like him kind of giving me some courage to do your own thing a little bit, and all the advice I got to diversify your content, I think, was always great advice. And less advice and more just watching other people lead by example. I think of I did in my podcast series when I interviewed Xerxes. For those of you who don't know, just one of the bigger Madden YouTubers out. He kind of gave his backstory, and it was a part of his backstory. It was a part of Toke's backstory, another big creator, Eric Rayweather, and Buffalo K and ScoMo, and it became a recurring theme that a lot of these guys and gals who were the most successful at whatever they were doing or whatever was in their space, they were putting forth a unique effort. For Zerk, it was he had a shift at Burger King right after school. He would run home, crank out a Madden video, go to his shift at Burger King, like walk home or something like that, start prepping for the next one. And there kept being examples of these folks doing extraordinary things or going above and beyond for themselves. And the proof was in the pudding. The more I heard this from really successful people, the more I realized that it's not just going to, it's going to take more than just your run of the mill, like, well, I showed up today and that should be sufficient, because there are people like them. And people like, I would love to put you and I right in their same category, and we're going to keep working toward that. But there were folks that were working harder, that were doing more, that were taking themselves more seriously, that were believing in their dream to an even higher degree than, the average would. And it took that. It took something extraordinary. It took being OD and going above and beyond the expectations and what a reasonable effort would be, and learning that, like I said, less advice and more just what I've learned from successful people. It was humbling to know that, and motivating to realize that if you want extraordinary results, you're going to need to put in extraordinary effort and do more than the average. If you want a higher than average output, your input is going to need to match that as well. So I think that was a really important thing to learn from successful people, is that you're going to need to get after it a little bit. Like, if you want the big result, you're going to need to put in the big effort. And sometimes a big effort is going to feel like a big failure, and it's going to feel like you're just spinning your wheels and you're wasting your time. And it's in those instances where you have to persist, right? You have to keep going. You have to figure out the next thing, adjust if you need to, or keep pressing if you need to. And nobody has the answers ever. And it can be frustrating when you're getting it wrong. It can be beautiful when you're getting it right. And you look for any way to, recapture the moment, recapture lightning when you find it. But a common factor is usually going to be effort. So, learning from successful people that it didn't just happen on accident. It was very deliberate and took a long time and was really hard for them to do. It's both reassuring and also humbling, because you're going to need to match that if you want a result like that for yourself. But there ain't nobody out here getting something for nothing, right? Like, you could look at somebody with a big platform and be like, man, I wish, and man, it must be so easy for them. And to some degree, that's true, but there's always going to be a backstory. There's always going to be an origin as to what they had to do to get there. And in a lot of instances, it's a lot. So what I learned is to, put forth the effort that I want, that's commensurate with the result that I want to get out of the thing.
Now, with you talking about all the effort that it takes, putting into this, the countless hours, sometimes the super long nights, whether it's
Sure.
editing or, in your case, making up some funny tweets and roasting somebody in the comments. What do you feel like is one point in your streaming career and content creation career where you felt like, not necessarily, you don't ever really feel like you've made it, right? In this business, I feel like there's never really a
Yeah.
time where it's like, oh, I've made it. But what is one moment in your career that you felt like, man, it paid off, like it was worth it. Like, for this moment right here, this was it. All those nights, those countless hours of thinking maybe I'm not gonna make it.
Yeah.
What is that moment for you? It felt like I've done something with this and I'm damn proud of it.
That I love that question. The first thing I think of is, this was back when I was on a green screen, probably two living spaces ago. I remember when I was a kid and I had my buddies over, because I like played football, so I had football friends, and I remembered when I was a kid, like, and I had one of my buddies coming over. I would hide my nerdiest games, like Final Fantasy or whatever, or Metal Gear Solid or whatever I was playing at the time. I would stash those. I would hide them when my buddies came over. I didn't want to be a nerd. I wanted to be another one of the football guys. I remember when I was really excited about it. I wasn't sure how it was going to go. To this point in my streaming thing, we had been 99% Madden. I knew I wanted to do something else. I wanted to share something that was close to my heart with this community that I had built. I felt like I had a bunch of friends around me, and I played Metal Gear Solid 1, which was one of my all-time favorite games as a child, as a kid. And I remember it well as, probably my first mature video game. And I remember how many times I got stuck on that playthrough initially, and I had to look at the strategy guide and everything. And I have all these nostalgic type of memories of playing Metal Gear Solid as a kid, and I booted up Metal Gear Solid for the channel, and I was like, man, I don't know if anyone's gonna want to watch this. It's an old game. We usually do Madden. It was back when Weekend League was a thing, and it's a Thursday or Friday or whatever, and everyone's like, okay, like Weekend League stream, here we go. And I boot up Metal Gear Solid, and we had the blessing of like 90, 100 people in there the whole time. And as I'm playing through this, man, I just remember feeling so happy that, like, listen, like, hopefully I can recreate this at some point in the future, but for right this second, right now, I'm playing a game that I loved as a kid and was so close to my heart, and was part of the reason I wound up loving video games as much as I did, with 100 people that I've grown to know and love in this community, and they've showed up in this degree of strength to share this with me, and this nostalgic memory and this playthrough I remember. And once we because I would call that like our first really successful quote variety stream. And I remember that so well. And that was one of the first moments where I was like, dude, if we can present stuff that I love like this, because it makes me more passionate about it, I'm having a better time. I think by and large, when streamers are having fun and enjoying themselves, the show invariably is much better. If I could find ways to recreate this feeling, we might really be on to something. And it was fresh off of right before the partner push. You have to make decisions that aren't in line with that. Like, you have to consider, like, okay, I would love to play Metal Gear Solid, but if I only get 15 viewers and I'm trying to get the 75 for partner, like, I really can't. My hands are tied. I remember Saturday night Among Us, I'm on my partner push, and we would get a hyper active chat of about 50 people on the nose, dude. And what a blessing that is, man. 50 people is so many people, and everyone's chatting, and it's a great time, and everyone loves Saturday Night Among Us. And I couldn't do it because I would get 50 to 55 people, 50 to 60 people like clockwork, and they would be there for as long as I was live. And that's what it was at the time. So fresh off of that mindset of, man, I have to pick and choose what I want to do here, to be so careful of these stupid numbers that I don't feel like I should care about. That moment where we booted up Metal Gear Solid, and not we were done with that phase. I felt like I could do what I wanted to do, and we got the badge, and I didn't need to worry about it as much. And to still feel so grateful for the success of that stream. I remember that being a big moment for me, of like, yeah, you might be onto something here. This might be something you could do.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. I
Yeah.
that was unique. Honestly, I really love that answer. That was great. Just
Good, man.
because
That was a great
I
question,
could,
and I thought of it immediately too.
yeah, I could see the emotion. Like, it really, it was like it hit. Like, I can tell, just even you talking about it now, you can tell that it still resonates with you. Like,
Yeah,
that was a big moment for you, and I love that for you, and obviously the work you put in.
for sure,
With
man.
you hitting partner, obviously, that's kind of where I discovered you, was kind of around the Among Us nights and stuff like that, and you had still
Yeah,
not
yeah.
hit partner yet. You have done a unique thing, and I think your success in growing is very unique in the sense that I really honestly, there's been a few other people, but at least in the community where me and you come from, you're the only person I've really seen do this, where you grew through Twitter, and that's where honestly you got majority of people that come to your streams, and you hit partnering through that. Where the normal avenue, almost any creator you ask, it's, hey, upload on YouTube, upload on TikTok,
TikTok,
short
right?
form stuff like that. Whereas you have taken this unique approach, and it fascinates me honestly, where you grew through Twitter and really honestly didn't do the TikTok or the YouTube thing, and it was more of just through straight Twitter and obviously interacting Twitch and Discords and stuff like that. What do you
Sure.
think contributed to that success? And do you
You
think
know,
it's smart for some other creator to do that as well, or do you think they should take the normal route of TikTok and YouTube?
that's another great question. I think that, like, my skills, maybe not my skill set, but I was less suited to the like quick clip nature of TikTok. YouTube was tougher because I was still learning how to edit, and it's a time question as well. I felt like Twitter most closely aligned with how I communicated in general, right? Like a quick little blip. In college, I majored in philosophy. I loved writing. I loved, in my bio, it's a joke. I'll argue for free, but it's not really a joke because I will argue for free. This type of conversational exchange, I thought I was much better suited to. But to your point, somebody going forward, I think would be crazy to not utilize TikTok, to not utilize YouTube Shorts. And if I'm going to bring myself to the front of the congregation and be honest about it, I did not find success in haven't found it really on YouTube. We got nerfed on our first TikTok account, so like had to reboot another one of those as well, and it's felt a little bit like spinning my wheels. So it's both that I feel most capable of communicating in that way, in short form text and short messages and back and forth and conversations with people and arguments with people, than I ever did editing my own stuff for YouTube, or like the quick attention grabbing immediate type of content that is on TikTok. So I feel like it's advantageous for people to kind of match up their own capacities and what they're good at themselves with what a platform can do for you, right? If you take beautiful still pictures and you're great at editing your shots, maybe Instagram is going to make a lot of sense for you to go viral over there, and you can convert. But I think the essence of your question, and you're really onto something, is the discoverability on Twitch is zero. It's not low. It's not a little. It's pretty much zero, especially getting your stream off the ground. And my heart goes out to people who are doing so many of the right things, but just because they're buried so deep in a given directory, it's like it feels like a hopeless endeavor. So you're absolutely right, I think, with the idea that it really is going to take another platform and kind of bringing in an audience and cross-pollinating, and I met a bunch of people. I became active in Mutt Twitter first, and I got some traction off of like a Gutfox tweet. I replied with the method I was doing to crank out some coins, and Gutfox replied, and now I got a couple new Madden follows. Then I meet Up and Adam. Up and Adam and I are offline grinding methods before he was a YouTuber without a face cam at the time, getting like 100 views per video. He hit me up about this Gutfox method, and it's stuff like that, bro. It's like this butterfly effect that you could never anticipate. To be in the right place at the right time, like you got to be in a bunch of different places. If I hadn't replied to that Gutfox tweet, who knows what would have happened if Adam didn't accept my invitation into the CFM that we were in, and I literally and he took it from. I take no credit for Adam. Adam is his growth has been all on his own. But if I hadn't put hands and feet on Adam to boot up a stream in the first place, I wonder what would have been different there. And you can just never know when that moment is going to be, when that reply is going to be, when that viral video is going to hit, or you're going to get the reply from someone you really respect and you wanted to work with, and you could go from there. I sent Nick Mazesko a message on Twitter, Nick, the voice of competitive Madden, right? And now one of my best friends of all time. And separately from that, and we've done a good job at keeping these things separate, he is also now the top donor of my channel history and will probably be like that pretty much indefinitely. And I didn't hit him up with some expectation that he's now, going to be my top gifter in, by multiples. It was just, I wanted to know what he had going on. Like if he had work to be done, or if I could work with him or get in a booth with him, I wanted to do that. So it's these little things that turn into a butterfly effect. It was the reply on a random Gutfox tweet that brought Adam into my noties. And now Adam and I are friends. Now Adam's in the CFM. Now I'm forcing Adam to boot up a stream. And now we meet Murphy D. And one of Adam's friends is Luch. And Luch is in the next season. And then it's now Luch get on stream. And it's just, and it's these tiny little things that have these really drastic ripple effects. And, so to keep, that is to say, keep putting yourself out there. You could never imagine. You'll never know what's going to be your catalyst, what's going to be your Gutfox reply, or this CFM that spawned me and Adam and Murphy and Luch and all these other guys that you would recognize from around the community. You can just never tell. So, I think there's a lot to be said for operating in good faith, doing your best all the time, right? Making an effort and putting yourself out there. I sent a message to Nick. He deaded me. He just ghosted me for numerous weeks / months at a time. And I was like, well, that was a waste of my time. And now fast forward, we are very dear friends. We've done jobs together in Vegas and Ole Miss and Nashville. And to think that none of it would have happened, very likely, if I hadn't kind of gone out on a limb. And that's not even to pat myself on the back. It's just to show that, like, you might get some negative responses, or it might not be that. You might not make a best friend, or, see somebody's streaming career blossom. It might not be any of that, but it could be. It could. Put yourself out on a limb enough times around people that you respect. And, I think the universe, I don't know what you believe in, but I feel like the universe kind of looks kindly upon things like that. And, that's when it's like, yeah, the effort's been there and I've done a lot of deliberate things as well. But every once in a while, you're just going to get lucky, man. You're just going to get lucky, and you're going to meet the right people, and you're going to wind up in the right place at the right time. And, because you can't forecast it, I think it's just you lead with your best foot at all times. Keep trying to learn from people around you, and if my experience is any indication, it could really, really go well. Keep networking, man. Keep talking to people. Keep meeting people like you're doing with the Rowdy Hour, man. It's just case in point. I think you're going to learn so much, and I think you're going to get as good as you already are. I think you're going to get better and better at this, and more confident, even more and more comfortable. So I think you're really on to something with this. Keep working, dude. Just keep pushing this stuff out. Keep putting yourself out there, and I think you'll reap the benefits.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. That's kind of where it's coming from someone who is in your position, obviously.
Sure.
I always look at streaming, and when people want to give up, I kind of, that meme where it's like the guy's about to hit the diamonds and then he
Diamond,
turns
I know
away.
it well.
And every time, man, like whenever I've had those days where it's like you feel like you just nothing's working, right? And you're not getting the views, and you're not getting the chatters, and you're not having the success like others, right? And it's just like you just want to turn, but then it's like I think in my head, I'm like, but tomorrow can be the day, right? Tomorrow can be the day anybody in this space can hit those diamonds. They can be that one short. It can be that one message. It can be that one reply to someone.
That's it.
It could be that one tweet that possibly goes viral and gets millions of views, and now you have all these eyes on you. I've seen it happen all the time. You hear about a lot of people, and they always talk about that one moment, that big break that kind of launched them into that success, and they kind of just rode the wave. And I think the biggest key is yes, you need that big opportunity, but that big opportunity means absolutely nothing if you are not prepared for it and you have not been doing the
Correct.
work behind the scenes to prepare for it. And so that's what I always, I tell myself and I tell others, is always be prepared for that opportunity, man. You might not know when that opportunity is going to come, but if you are prepared for that opportunity and you can snatch it like that and you've put the work in to be prepared and take advantage of it, you can go all the way to the moon with it. And I think that's as big as key as it is actually getting the opportunities, being prepared and putting in that work.
Yeah, bro, absolutely no question. I mean, I think you're right on with that. I say often, if you can't stream to 0 people, you also can't stream to 1,000 people. I think a lot of folks get caught up in this idea that, like, yeah, I'll talk once somebody gets here. If I could get on a streamer mountain and just yell for those folks to not do that, to always be on stage, always be putting on a show, I certainly would, because like you said, a big part of it is being in the right place at the right time. Your availability in a lot of instances is your best capability, right? So you're not going to get the big rate if you're not live. You're not going to have this, you're not going to build a network if you're unwilling to reach out to somebody and meet them and put yourself in an uncomfortable position to maybe get left on red by Nick Mazesco for multiple weeks at a time. You know what I mean? And like, if you're unwilling to put yourself forward, you're not going to be in a situation to capitalize on those opportunities. And I love what you said, Rowdy. Being in the right place at the right time is one question, but are you ready for it? Or are you ready for that? What's going to change, right? Does the show start once people get into your stream? If so, I'm not going to raid you. I'm just not going to raid you. If a show is going on, independent of how many people you have going on in there, I sound like a broken record. That's the advice I think I give growing streamers the most often. Rowdy, you and I have talked about it as well, about, as minimal dead air time as you could possibly stand. And you and I both know sometimes it's difficult, man, talking to nobody about nothing. And it's less a question of viewers, man, because, sometimes the chat is just not going to really be scrolling. People are going to be, maybe you have the blessing of a lot of lurkers, or people are at work, and maybe you have some people in your stream, maybe you don't. Regardless, if that chat's not moving, you have to be able to continue the show on your own, with or without help. I think people lean on the chat to be their content, because then the stream just turns into you're reading a chat message and responding to it, and that's your content, is whatever the chat is putting in the chat, you reacting to it, and you become a reaction streamer on a micro level. On a macro level, reaction streams, yeah, I understand the value there. Like, we've done a little bit of, NFL Monday morning type reaction streams, but you've also absolved yourself of being the content. And you see a lot of these bigger streamers doing the same thing. Like, they're not putting forth any content at all. They're leeching from everyone else's stuff. So I'm a big proponent of, just like you said, man, be ready for your opportunity. And for my money, part of being prepared is the capability to stream to anywhere between 0 and 1,000 people. And you got to be ready for all of that and anything in between. And if you are, when you get that break, you'll take that thing and run with it, man. And it's going to be beautiful.
So obviously you're a Twitch partner, right? Getting to Twitch partner, I have seen, is definitely a series of, hard work. And it's definitely, I guess, sometimes it's a stressful time for streamers, and then other people,
Yeah,
it's like, we'll get there when we get there.
sure.
And I've seen a trend of people doing a partner push, right? They go live every time and they have partner push in their title. And the emphasis I see for weeks and weeks and weeks is partner push, partner push, partner push, right?
Yep.
And a lot of times they get partner and then everyone leaves, right? And I feel
Mm.
like a lot of times they put so much emphasis on getting people in there for partner numbers. They're not taking they move away from what got them there, which was building your community and getting to know your people. And once they hit
Yeah.
partner, those people move on to the next guy that's trying to hit partner.
Yep.
Do you feel like the partner push, I guess, thing can hurt a streamer? Do you think it's going to hurt a streamer every time, or do you think in some instances it can help a streamer and they can actually use it in the right way and still be fine afterwards once they've hit that goal of getting the check mark?
It's tough because the correct answer is both. I've seen it both help and hurt streamers in its own way. Um, because you're right, I've seen it get away from some people, and the partner push becomes all they talk about, all they're worried about. They're way less worried about their content. If they have 60 people in the chat instead of 75, you see that their demeanor is different, and maybe they got to make stream a little bit shorter because they can't afford to tank their average like this. And it's so tough, man, because at the outside of ad money, really, viewership doesn't matter that much. I know it's crazy that it doesn't. Okay, it matters. It doesn't matter as much as people think it does. Just the same way the partner badge itself doesn't matter as much as people think it does. I looked at my so with the partner plus thing, they have like it breaks out your tier 1s, 2s, and 3s. The short story is, I'm going to use round numbers. About, say, 220 tier 1 subscriptions paid me the same amount of money. 220 like original, like recurring subs, 220 tier 1 subscriptions paid me just about the same amount of money as 30 tier 3 subscriptions. And I think there is something to learn in there, that 30 people who, to use these numbers specifically, and you can extrapolate it to any other numbers, the idea is a smaller amount of people that super rock with you, support what you're doing, see value in the content and the effort and the work that you put in. A comparatively smaller group of people who recognize a high degree of value in you is going to be just the same as a significantly larger group of people who rock with you, and you're worth $5 a month for your content to not have ads, but it's degrees of it, right? So I think the lesson to be learned there is to really spend time cultivating your relationships. It's not always quantity over, it's almost never quantity over quality. I take pride in, we kind of cultivate the chat. We don't let, nasty business or spammers or, these kids that come in with the copy pastas and whatnot. My chat is not the place for them. It's a little bit more curated. You kind of have to act right. That lets me become closer with the people that I do have in chat, and, cultivate those relationships more, learn a little bit more about them. So it's a long-winded answer. I think there's value in focusing on your interpersonal relationships with people. I think that's where you have to start. And you'll meet people, as networking goes, you'll meet people. If you make people feel good and they can tell somebody else, like, dude, this streamer, like, always talks to me, like, he'll answer my questions or my messages when he types them in, dude, I think you'd really like him. And you have that happening, and then you can build a new relationship, and so on and so forth. I think people get too caught up in, well, I can't ban this person because they're a viewer, and I don't want one less viewer. Dude, not every viewer is worth having as a viewer, and I think you got to remember that. So as it relates to the partner push, it puts you in this really tough paradox, right? I remember for me, it took the form of these Among Us nights where I know that my community is at its strongest. We're laughing in the Discord call. There's a bunch of people who want to play. The chat is active. There's not one single robot in those 55 viewers. If I wanted partner, I couldn't also play Among Us. So it's like they settle you into this weird paradox where it's like to get partner, you need to focus on things that are less important when you finally get partner. Like if you were to successfully do it, now everything needs to change again, because all the considerations that got you to partner, staying on a strict schedule, only playing one game, I think are all really ways that you have to behave in a partner push, when the goal, in my opinion, for any streamer should be eventually to wind up with the capability to do variety content without the structure of your channel falling apart, right? You have to be, even if you're getting 60 people on your main game, I think it's really important to still be able to get 30 people on a game of your choice, but you can't do that in a partner push. So while I see variety streaming as it should be the end goal, it's also pretty much, it doesn't mesh at all with pushing partner. It gets you searching for viewers, for better or worse. Our boy Mars in the chat agrees for the most part, but doesn't sponsors only come with viewers and eyes? A lot of this stuff is off downloads, man. So again, if you have, like the example before, my 30 tier 3 subscribers from last month paid me the same amount of, and the money, it's just representative, paid me the same amount of money as 220 tier 1 subscribers. By the same token, if you had that same 30 people who are willing to download a game for you, spend an hour on it today and then an hour on it tomorrow to get X levels, and you're in a Discord and you got a core group of 20 people, that is financially more valuable than having a bunch of people that just like know of you, but like they're not willing to spend any time for you. Like they're not like, they're not going to download a game and spend their own time, hop on whichever game you want them to hop on while they're on the John that week. They're not going to do it because the buy-in is less. So, I've been talking for a minute and we've said a couple different things. The partner push I've seen go both ways. I've seen it really hurt channels. I think you got to remember that some people want to be a part of growth. And once those type of viewers feel like you've made it, you don't need their help anymore, and they move on, right? They move on to the next project, to the next 3-viewer undiscovered thing. So you can't take that personally, because there is indeed almost exclusively. I don't think I've seen a partner get their badge and like explode in popularity on the other end of it. Usually there's a little bit of a comeback down to earth, because now they're going to want to do other stuff, or maybe they want to play a different game, or the people who were really just there to see the growth and be a part of the partner push, they can move on and do the next thing. So you have to balance all of the above, and it's nearly an impossible task to do. I really don't envy people who are stuck in this partner push mindset. I understand the badge is cool as hell. The badge is cool as hell. Being a partner is badass because it's hard to do. So, and I think the badge represents a difficult task to accomplish. So I think it's worth chasing. But it cannot come at the cost of the networks you're building, the connections you're making with people, paying attention to folks. People want to be heard. I'm lucky enough, maybe we average about 100 viewers a stream or something like that. I try to pride myself on missing as few chat messages as I can. In my mind, if you have the time to type to me, I should have the time to answer. And, I kind of build my networking and communication with people off of that. If you're going to type to me, I'm going to have something to say back to you. So it's a nearly impossible balancing act to strike. And I've seen it go well. I've seen it go poorly. If you are always operating from a place of honesty with your community, involving them in what you're trying to do and why you're trying to do it, and being open, with them about what's happening. I remember it was a tough conversation. Like, listen, guys, like we have to put Among Us Saturdays on a back burner for right now. We're so close. We have a 72 average. We're just not getting there. And that in this example, that your 30 tier 3 people are going to rock with you no matter what. And it's so important to build that base of mutual trust, and people aren't going to support you for no reason. They're not just going to like, yeah, he's like, looks like a nice dude. Like, yeah, I'm rocking with him. They'll support you when they feel a mutual respect, when you are honest with them, when you're communicative with them, when you work hard. There's nothing worse, as we all know, right, than the streamer who just expects the world for nothing. There's nothing work. People work hard as hell for their money, and to be worthy of any voluntary support like the model is on Twitch, you really need to work hard. You need to go above and beyond and provide some type of value. You cannot lose sight of your value propositions in a partner push. If you do, you've lost the plot, and the badge, you're making the badge more important than it needs to be. So I don't mind partner pushes as long as you can maintain focus on, like you said, Rowdy, what got you here to this point in the first place. You can never lose sight of that. Whatever has gotten you so close, whatever you're doing well enough to be growing trust with people, and people want to be around you, and the content is good, and you're working hard, you can't break any of that for 5 more viewers. And I think that's where people can go wrong, where they sacrifice some of the stuff that's going well for these last 5 to 10 that they need, and then they're lost. Then they get the badge, and then what? They've turned off people who they could have been building with, and they're big time now. And when they go through the lull, it's going to hit a little bit differently, for sure. So maintain your core value set. I think don't sacrifice that for a partner push. But at the same time, I think it's badass to have the badge. It's a hard thing to do. So if you can manage to do it, the right way, if you could fight and you're honest and you work hard, go ahead, push for it for sure.
I saw Mars asked a question, and I feel like you kind of hit on it a little bit. He was asking, he's noticed a lot of streamers. He's from the Madden community. He's noticed a lot of streamers hit partner and have completely came back down, to what you were talking about, that
Yeah.
dip. Not all, but most averaging under 50. And he was just wondering, is there a reasoning for that? And I think you kind of touched on that. A lot of times when people hit partner, even if you don't do the whole partner push thing we just talked about and you hit it naturally, it's just a natural thing that happens, and that's also just how streaming and content creation is
Mhm.
a lot of times you'll hit a big milestone, or you'll hit partner and you kind of just dip back below. And I feel like you experienced that a little bit as well. I think I
Oh
remember
yeah.
too. Yeah, because I remember I was around for when you hit partner, and it was like, you were up here, and then you kind of dipped back down for a while, and then you slowly kind of got back to that original number you were at. So I
Yeah.
think it's just a natural thing, and that happens. I don't think there's anything that necessarily contributes to that, even if you don't do the partner push. So I mean, you can let me know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, man, I agree. I definitely agree. I think part of it is the partner push becomes a storyline for the channel, right? It's something that people are tuning into every day. Or for me, it was the partner plus thing. It was a storyline that connects all of the streams, right? Like, what is the big picture for someone trying to get partner? It is them getting partner. That's the goal. That's how the storyline develops. And a lot of times, like, streamers are guilty of this too. They they capture the object of their desire, right? They get the badge, they made it, and now what is connecting the streams? Now you're just another person who's playing video games in front of a crowd. How else are you expecting people to connect with you? I have really I felt fulfilled by sharing some of my personal story or my day to day, or I got married this year, I bought a house, and some of what I hope to offer to connect my streams is just what's going on in my life, and what I have up next. I think sometimes once people get the badge, there's nothing that's tying the streams together anymore, and there's no storyline to connect. There's nothing to really follow along with. Like, you might really love what a streamer is doing in a day-to-day sense, but for you to keep coming back, there's got to be a storyline is the best way that I could think to put it. There's got to be some common threads, like Fend is a father to be. That's been a theme of a lot of I'm talking to fathers. I'm gathering information. We're getting excited. What's it like being a new homeowner? I'm able to cultivate conversations with people about their experience with that. It's all a means to really genuinely connect with people, and I think it's easy to connect with somebody who's just pushing for more for themselves, right? In a partner push, that's easy to connect with. It's clear. This is the objective. They're working to do it, and we're going to see how this develops. We'll see their successes and their failures and the stuff that comes in between. I want to be there to see it. Somebody's in a video game tournament. I want to see whether they win, whether they lose. There's a storyline to be tuned into, and if you lose that, you lose sight of that. You got the badge, and in a lot of ways, your main storyline concluded. What are people coming back for? What is left after that? What is the value of your content, the value of yourself, the value of these relationships that you've cultivated now that the objective has been complete? That chapter is closed. You got the badge, you were successful, but then now what? And I think if you're able to connect with people and network and have valuable conversations in passing or as they're in your stream or on other platforms on Twitter or whatever it may be, all the ways that you could build these networks a little bit stronger will really serve you, I think, is fair to say.
Yeah, love it. I just want to get to one more question from
Mm,
the chat, and then we'll
yeah.
we'll hit a. I'll ask you a little fun question. I'll let you get out of here.
Oh, cool, man. No
As
rush. Yeah, love this.
so yeah, Crash asked, "What was it like once you got partner, readjusting and no longer having that pressure of hitting the analytics? And can you just focus on the future of the channel?" I think that's a great question.
I think so too. Yeah, dude, I think so too. And the short answer is yes. The longer answer is you're going to come face to face with truly and honestly where your channel is at. It could be good news, it could be humbling, it could be somewhere in between. But to some degree, now looking back at it, you feel like, okay, I made it now. I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to play some other games. I'm so sick of this directory I've been stuck in and this time I've been stuck at, because this is where when my viewers show up, this is what they want to watch. And I just feel like my hands, I've just been connected to just this time slot, to this game. And godly, I want to be able to do something different. And I think a lot of people feel like that, and a lot of people will go ahead and do something else and focus on the future of the channel. But there is certainly, you know, some moments of, okay, great, you got the badge now, you can do whatever you want, but doing whatever you want is going to change what the channel looks and feels like a little bit. It might change how many bodies are in there. There might be more or less. It might change what the chat is feeling like. You might get a different type of viewer than you're used to. You might like that different type of viewer more or less. So while I think everyone shares the desire to now, okay, you're free from these chains of like things that I have to do to get partner, there is also a moment that I think people need to be prepared for, of now that the partner push, the people who like watching a partner push, they're not there anymore. The people who like a small stream, you've made it now. You're a partner now. The people who want a small stream, they're not going to be around anymore. If you want to play another game, all the people who want to watch Madden at 6 o'clock on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, if you're playing a different game on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you're not going to have them either. So there is this coming back down to earth realization that I think people have to make is, yes, you have the freedom to do whatever you want with your channel now. Is whatever you want to do with the channel the best way to make it successful? That's a different story. Maybe yes, maybe no. Ideally, if I could have my way, if I could make the exact same amount of money that I would if I mained Madden every single day, or NCAA, like if I mained a game, I would love to be able to do that on whatever game dropped that week. And I'm trying to force my channel into a situation where that's the case, right? We're playing a lot of Spider-Man. People are loving that. You know, so I'm trying to force it now a little bit, because you have to work through this phase of like, okay, now you've like dropped all the extras, and it's just your, you know, your theoretical tier 3 people who are left with you at that point. That's where your channel's really at, is there. Those are your people. That's your community. The folks who will show up anyway, no matter what you're playing on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Those people are few and far between, and you can't judge them for it, and you can't fault them for it. I've spent a lot of time on Twitch. I wanted to watch Madden. If somebody was doing a sponsored stream on something else, I don't want to watch that. It's such a challenge to be at any given time the one thing that somebody most wants to be watching, more than being on their phone, more than being in another Twitch channel, more than watching a TV show on Netflix, or going outside, or you know, listening to the radio, or watching a TV show, whatever the case may be. To be the most preferred way to spend attention is an honor, and it's also not going to happen all that frequently. So I think there's value in recognizing and appreciating people of any, you know, shape, size, or difference that are around you, because they could be anywhere else. It's a cliche, but when you really take that to heart and realize that they could be truly anywhere else, you wind up valuing those 4 people. And even though you wish it was 8 people, you can't lose track of valuing, truly and honestly valuing those 4 people who are riding with you. I think people can see that. I think people appreciate that. So yeah, man, I mean, it things change after your partner, and there's going to be a humbling moment where you're like, man, my channel is in a slightly different situation than I thought it was. And then you go back to work, and then it's a whole different thing. You thought you thought you were done after the partner push. Come to find out, I mean, that's truly the beginning. That's and then now you have to go back to the grindstone and figure out what works and what doesn't work. What do people want to see? Where is the overlap between what people want to see and what I want to do? is there flexibility there? I don't really. I've been enjoying Madden this year. I won't tell you two ways about it. Um, am I playing it for more hours than I would like to have left on my own devices? Yes, I am. That's because it's helpful to my channel. Because we make a joke of it. We hit bait and switches, right? Like I'm going to get people in the channel for Madden, and then I'm telling you what, I'm going to switch up to something else and something different. Leveraging the ways that your channel has been successful and trying to parlay those into new ways your channel will be successful. In a lot of ways, the work restarts anew when you get that partner badge, and a lot changes. But if you're willing to work as hard after the badge than before the badge, you're probably going to be just fine.
Yeah, man. I feel like once you hit partner and you have that large foundation, I tell people I feel like it's just the beginning, man. I feel like
Yeah.
honestly, when you hit partner and you have those numbers, I feel like that's when you should strive to be even more at your best, right? Because then I feel like you have that extra motivation, right? You got that group behind you,
Yep.
and I feel like that's when you should be ready to be like, all right, let's take this to the next step. Be ready to go. Like I'll be honest, I actually have a Google Docs folder of a bunch of plans that I have for ideas that I want to do once I reach
Love that.
that point. Just plan for the future, and I think that people should do that as well. I think you should always be prepared, like we talked about earlier. Always be prepared for the moment. That way you're ready and you can seize it and you can take it to the moon, because you never know if you're ever going to get the next opportunity, or you never know when the next one's going to come, right? It could come next Tuesday or it could come in another 3 years. So,
Yeah, bro. I love to hear you being so proactive about, your plans and your ambitions and what you want to see happen. I think pretty much the worst case scenario is folks who are like, well, I'm going to boot up and I'm going to keep booting up. And one day I'm going to get the raid. I'm going to get the raid. I'm going to have the day that makes me. And I'm not really going to do anything in particular to get there. I'm just going to show up and I'm going to wait and I'm going to keep being in the right spot, what I think might be the right spot. And it's a waste of time. It's a complete waste of time. I love, to hear from guys like you who are ready for what's next. You're thinking of the future. It's not just you're sitting twiddling your thumbs waiting for the next big raid. You have ambitions and you're forward looking. One of the main things about streaming, bro, is nobody's going to give you permission to do anything, or a good idea for you might be a terrible idea for the next person, and you really have to make it work for you. Nobody's going to give you permission. Nobody's going to hold your hand or tell you all the things that you need to be doing and all the things that you can't be doing. Some of the most challenging stuff is the instances where you feel like you're by yourself and it's just you in this and you can't figure out why you're not getting any subscriptions and the views are dropping, and it's like, oh my God, dude, you start panicking and you're like, man, do I got this or not? I always wish creators and streamers strength through those moments, through those, times where it's like, dude, nothing's working. Nothing's working right now. Because a lot of my biggest days, a lot of my best streaming days come on just the other side of moments like that, where I'm talking to Emily, I'm talking to my wife, like, babe, we've done, I've streamed 10 hours the last 2 days. We've done 12 subscriptions. Like, I don't know what the deal is. Like, I can't, like, I don't know. I don't know what to do. Those are the toughest moments. Sometimes it takes a pivot. Sometimes it's like you were talking about with the meme, where the diamonds are right there and you just need to keep trying and keep making sure that the show is good. A pretty good answer, generally speaking, when things aren't going right, is to work a little bit harder. I don't think that's shameful to say. You don't want to set into this grind set where you're not sleeping, you're just always working a little bit. But a good answer for when things aren't going your way, put a little extra effort in, see what that winds up looking like, and be persistent, man. Like, have some faith in yourself. It's not going to be all rainbows and sunshine. It's going to be a lot of ebbs and flows. You're going to be up, and you know, I've made, and this is not an exaggeration, I've made in one day streaming, in a couple hours of a stream, what I have made in other full months of streaming. And that's exhausting. It's hard to plan for, it's hard to budget around. And, people are like, yeah, man, like streaming's got to be the best job ever. Like, you just get to play video games with people you like. And they are right that it's awesome. It's awesome to be able to play games with people that you enjoy being around. But there is so much the mental work that goes into it, whether, be how you're seeing yourself or your plans for the future. It's so much. And sometimes it feels so heavy that, as you know, it's not as simple as you hit the button and people show up. There's so much more that needs to go into it. So I always wish creators, strength in their moments of weakness, have faith in yourself. Don't expect anybody to come rescue you or do the stuff for you. You can ask people for advice, but at the end of the day, they can give you what works best for them. You're the only one that can figure out what's going to work best for you. And sometimes that's going to be sometimes that's going to mean taking advice. Sometimes that's going to mean going completely against advice. And though it's difficult, it can be worth it. Whether or not your stream pops off or not, it's a great way to learn about yourself and learn about effort and paying it forward to yourself. And, every once in a while it feels like you're spinning your wheels, but when that traction catches and you get that movement that you've been hoping for, that you've been grinding for, and you have that day where you make, all the money that you could hope for, and you feel great about that, and you feel confident with it, and you feel like the show is good, for all those great moments, there's going to be a handful of dark ones too. So, remember the meme of the diamonds just on the other side. Remember your capacity and your capability to work hard. Don't be afraid to double down on your efforts. Do your best not to get discouraged, even at discouraging things. And, it feels like so much at once, but it is all that. It is all of that at once. It's, something that so many people want to do because in its best form, it's the best job on the planet. And there is a cost to be paid, as there is for anything else. There is a high cost to be paid to put yourself in a situation like that. So just remember that it's not going to be easy. Easy things don't wind up being worth it. And it feels that much better when you have the Metal Gear Solid stream with 100 people and you have that moment and it's like, man, this is going to be okay. There's going to be some bad days after, but for right now, this is good. Capitalize on what works and just keep moving forward.
So I thought you were gonna ruin this question before I got to ask it to you when we were talking earlier.
Almost,
But
I was dancing around it.
yeah, you were dancing around. And I was like, I had to back up real quick. I was like, hope. All right, sorry. It's why we make backup questions for the original.
Nice, attaboy, man. That's preparation, bro. Look at you, podcast 1, and you already got it.
Hey, man, I gotta impress one of the best out here in the podcast
Dude,
business.
crushing.
So if it doesn't matter the money, right? You're gonna make the same amount of money, right? That you would make playing any game, right? What is the one game that you would stream for the rest of your content creation career and your numbers wouldn't drop and you're like guaranteed like a certain amount of money?
Oh man. Okay, I've probably spent the most of my own free time. The answer here can't be Madden. It can't be. I feel like I've spent the most of my own free time on Madden. If you would give me the leeway to pick a genre, it would be RPGs because I love them. It's probably my personal favorite genre of video game. And they're not quite unstreamable, but they are gosh darn close, man. I remember when we played Hogwarts Legacy for the first couple of days. Bro, that game was like a fire alarm in the channel, dude. I would bait and switch. We'd have 80, 90 people on Madden. I'd switch to Hogwarts. And next time I looked at the viewers, that thing said 27. And I was like, holy, dude, I don't feel like this is that bad, honestly. So if you let me pick a genre, I love RPGs on my own. But like the real answer to that question, dude, I hate it. Just based on time that I've spent on the game, it's probably Madden. But if you're willing to give me RPGs as a whole, man, love Final Fantasy. It's pretty much indefinite time you could spend on a lot of those titles. There were some of my favorite video games are PS1 era JRPGs. You know what I mean? So if I could get away with getting the same numbers, same bread, and I could play my PS1 comfort game Legend of Dragoon for 100 hours, I would do that. But, if you were like right now, you could pick one game to rock out forever. I don't love it. It makes me cringe a little bit. It would probably have to be Madden. If you give me a genre, RPG's saving my bag, Rowdy. No question.
You know what? I'll give you the lock for the genre. I'll give
Okay,
you the
okay.
I'll give you the
W,
give me
W, W.
here. I like the answer, but yeah, I was scared for a minute because you were talking about like, yeah, playing whatever game I want. Like if I
Right.
had money didn't matter. I was like, oh, please don't answer
Dude,
it.
don't say it, fan. Don't tip your hand.
That's why we're prepared here, though, folks. But
That's it, man.
Ben, thank you so much for joining me. Uh, what an honor to be able to interview you. Thank you so
Oh,
much,
dude,
man.
Rowdy, man.
Honestly,
I hope I'm able to help you get off the ground just the same way that you were able to help me get off the ground, man. If I could pay it back to you, brother, I'm so glad that you asked me, dude. As soon as you shipped me the message, that was no question about it. Like you said some nice things in there, and it was like a paragraph essentially asking me to be on the thing. I was like, Rowdy, dude, hell yes. Sign me up. You tell me when, you tell me where, and I am in. No questions asked, bro. There is a certain degree of, I've told you this, hopefully I've told you this privately, and I'll tell you publicly right now. There's a certain degree of X factor involved in streaming. Either you can do it or you can't. Either you have the personality traits such that you're going to be entertaining, or not really. And there's room in streaming for the not reallys, right? The cozy streams or less talkative, whatever the case may be. But in terms of streaming X factors, you do have it. There are people that don't have it, and there are people who do have it. You do have it, and I know that some of the logistics and some of the details and some of the stuff around that X factor are frustrating, and I know it's in flux. And if everyone had the number of viewers that they deserve, you would be flooding every directory you're in. All right. So I know I don't mean to say that's not a consolation remark. I just want you to remember that about yourself. All you can do is control the controllables. All you can do is keep putting yourself in the best place that you could be at the best time that you can be there. It's going to take a little bit of luck for the other stuff to fall together. But at the end of the day, if your question is, do you have it or don't you, Rowdy, the answer for you is yes. And I wouldn't tell you that if it wasn't true. Straight up. At the end of the day, I would choose to say nothing if I didn't believe that was true. I wouldn't say anything at all because I do believe it's true. I feel comfortable and confident in telling you that. And I can't wait to see where you wind up because I think it's going to be somewhere awesome. And now you got me on the podcast, so I'm kind of like in on the ground level here, right? When you Nick Mercs this thing, I'll be like, yo, Rowdy, do you need a mod? Hear me out. How much are you paying? Get Fend involved. I got a kid. All right? Hear me out. It's S for S at the nastiest levels. I'm just joking. But I think very highly of your potential in content creation, bro. And I hope that you have the persistence to realize it for yourself. I do.
I appreciate it, man. I hear that from a lot of people that are higher up in your position, like you guys are. As you know, it's no secret. I'm always reaching out, and I offer this advice to anybody. And I'll ask you if you want to give one piece of advice to any creators out there listening to this before we end this thing off. But if there's piece of advice I can offer you guys, anything, if you're an up and coming creator, or even if you're at a level like a Fendler or anything like that, never be complacent with yourself. Always be looking to get better. Always be asking creators questions. And if you don't get a response, man, move on to the next one. Listen, there's plenty of people I've sent DMs to, get no answer. I'll send it to another
Sure.
creator, I get an answer, and it's a really good piece of advice. So never stop asking creators for advice, and never stop looking to get better out there in the content creation world. Just keep on creating content, man. You get better each and every day. Your first piece of content is never going to be perfect. Heck, your last piece of content is probably never going to be perfect. All right, the last time you ever make content, probably not going to be perfect. Just keep on posting and just strive to get better with every little clip that you make, or short, or stream, whatever it is. Just keep on working hard to get better. Ben, do you have what's one piece of advice you could give the creators that are trying to up and come and get to the position you are in?
Bro, you said it, man. You said it. It would be my main piece of advice: is don't be nervous to put yourself out there. Don't be scared of a no, because there could be a yes right around the corner. You can truly never know what network you try to establish that winds up being a big one. That winds up being your Nick Mazesco for me, someone who I'm now best friends with, and separately has also, gone just so far above and beyond to support my dream of the channel. And we've worked together now, and just all based off of a DM that he ignored for a couple of weeks. And I don't mean to make it about me again, but it's that type of idea. You never know what can become of you putting yourself out there like you do, Rowdy, and asking for advice, or just seeing who you can connect with, seeing who would answer your DM, and kind of build from there. Take a take a inventory of some people that are doing things the way that you feel like you want to be doing them. See what's working for them and what hasn't worked for them. If you can, glean advice or lessons are expensive. If you can learn lessons that other people have paid for, that's where that's method. That's where you really get cranking, baby. That's exclamation point method, is learning things that you didn't need to pay a high cost for. Other people's mistakes, things that they would do differently, things that they're doing now that are going really well, that they could skip you along through all the things that didn't work to this thing that did work. And you're never going to learn unless you have an active role in that and you're seeking knowledge. So that would be my advice. Keep seeking knowledge, keep meeting people. People are what is great about content creation. The reason Twitch is great because you can talk, somebody can talk to you. You could be talked to. It's the interaction, the human aspect of Twitch is where I think it's differentiating factor, where it goes the most right. And just remember that, man. Effort is key. Treat people with respect. Work really hard. People appreciate that and recognize you working hard, and work hard on their behalf, man. Put together a show, have some storylines that are connecting your streams, and be as consistent as you can, and just keep working. It's not going to be easy. Easy things are generally not worth it. And success in content creation is not easy, and it is worth it. And I wish everybody, strength through their tough spots, and I wish them humility, and remember what it was that got you to your highest points. And try to recreate that as best you can, man, and just treat other people the way that you want to be treated, and it all works out in one way or another. Treating people with respect and operating with high effort, those are great spots to start with, not just in streaming, but moving through the world in general.
Ben, thank you so much, man. It was an honor having you on here. Could not have a better guest to start off the Rowdy Hour podcast, ladies and gentlemen.
Man, the Rowdy Hour, bro. I can't wait to see who you got on here next. I'll definitely watch our episode back for sure. But thank you, Rowdy, for having me on, man. So, like I said, as soon as I saw you ask, I said, yeah, no, I definitely got to take advantage and be the first guest on the Rowdy Hour. You were even more prepared than I ever could have anticipated, man. You did a great job, bro. I appreciate you having me on, man. Thank you.
I got notes from one of the best. Before I sign off, I just want to do this before the end of every podcast. A little bit of positivity for the people listening. Listen, man, you're beautiful. You're one of a kind. All right. Keep on striving for greatness every day, no matter what it is. All right. Keep your head up. All right. And look, every day you wake up is a great day, and it's a blessed day. We will catch you on the next hour of the Rowdy Podcast. See y'all.